You beautiful bastards. Hope you're having a fantastic Wednesday. Welcome back to the Philip DeFranco Show. And a quick thing before we get started. Today's episode of the Philip DeFranco Show is brought to you by me, specifically BeautifulBastard.com. And if you're not aware, Beautiful Bastard is my cruelty-free, ethically sourced, all-natural, handmade in the United States hair care company. We've got fantastic natural and matte clay pomades that I trust in my hair every single day. Different holds, different smells, fantastic beard oil that those that are more follically gifted in the nation use every single day and love. And now most notably, our recently launched and fantastic shampoo and conditioners. I switched to these months ago and I swear by them. It feels like my hair is less oily, I have less dandruff. Overall, it is softer and easier to style. And notably, these are vegan friendly, color safe. We don't use parabens, sulfates, silicones, gluten, or harsh detergents. Or things that are actually very important. Harsh detergents, for example, the kind that you find in most shampoos. They can strip your hair of its natural oil, leaving your scalp irritated and unbalanced, causing an overproduction of oil and leaving you with greasy hair, dandruff, frizziness, and a whole list of problems. And I'm promoting this today because one, we are now back in stock, and two, to celebrate that, I'm also having a huge sale. If you use code BBB, you will get 30% off not just a particular product, but your entire order. And of course, as always, it is first come, first serve, so grab what you want while you can. And of course, as always, you can snag it all at BeautifulBastard.com, or you can just click on that handy dandy merch bar underneath this video on YouTube. But with all of that said, welcome to the Philip DeFranco Show. Buckle up, hit that like button, and let's just jump into it. And the first thing we're going to talk about today, actually kind of a quickie, lighter update. You know, last week, I talked about a video that included a number of people, including 22-year-old Brady Sluder, an Ohio native, who said this.
If I get corona, I get corona. At the end of the day, I'm not going to let it stop me from partying.
You know, with that video, we talked about all the issues with that kind of thinking. Also, of Brady, I said, who looks like a guy that would be an aspiring SoundCloud rapper, but he can't figure out SoundCloud yet. So first thing I want to say here, one, it turns out he's actually a self-described aspiring SoundCloud rapper. And so I kind of nailed it. It turns out sometimes you can judge a book by its cover. Also very happy to find out that he was able to figure out how SoundCloud worked. But also, two, I mentioned Brady not just so we can continue dunking on him for this moment, but also to acknowledge that this week he issued an apology. Posting on Instagram saying that he apologizes for the insensitive comment I made. I wasn't aware of the severity of my actions and comments. Adding, I'd like to take this time to own up to the mistakes I've made and apologize to the people I've offended. Like many others, I have elderly people who I adore more than anything in the world and other family members who are at risk, and I understand how concerning this disease is for us all. Our generation may feel invincible like I did when I commented, but we have a responsibility to listen and follow the recommendations in our communities. And with this, I personally say, hey, yes, I could continue dunking on this guy, but ultimately, I'm of the mindset of better late than never, and to anyone that's promoting a social good, great. Also, on the note of young people telling other young people, and really just everyone, to social distance, to take this serious, we saw the likes of the now newly crowned queen of TikTok, Charli D'Amelio, debuting a new dance called the Distance Dance and issuing a challenge, saying stay home and do the distance dance, tag me and the hashtag in your video. P&G, Procter & Gamble, will donate to Feeding America and Matthew 25 for the first 3 million videos. And this is something I love to see because obviously, yes, money going to charity is a good thing, but also it is incredibly meaningful when you have someone that to many people is the face of TikTok. Right, she's got 41.5 million followers just on that platform. In the 16 hours from when she posted that dance challenge, it got 8.1 million views. And it's important to consider the audience that she's speaking to. It's a much younger audience than creators like myself can hit. I think at all times, the more we can get people to remember, stay at home, distance, it's good, the better. And that's why whether it be TikTok or these other platforms that are encouraging people stay at home, do things together digitally, it's all helpful, just to different degrees. Now, with that said, I want to expand on something that we touched on yesterday because there have been quite a few updates, contradictions, responses, and other news around it. And that is President Donald Trump's plans to reopen the nation's economy on Easter. Because if you missed it, despite doctors and health officials advising strongly against it, thinking that the date is not possible, Donald Trump thinks that by April 12th, just 18 days away, we can get things back up and running. Calling it a beautiful timeline, saying,
I think Easter Sunday, and you'll have packed churches all over our country. I think it would be a beautiful time.
With this, you had a number of leaders and experts saying, not so fast. For example, after Donald Trump talked about this plan during the press conference yesterday, Dr. Fauci took the mic and said that dates like this can't just be set in stone and added.
That's really very flexible. We just had a conversation with the president in the Oval Office talking about, you can look at a date, but you got to be very flexible. And on a literally day by day and week by week basis, you need to evaluate the feasibility of what you're trying to do.
Also saying that the country is so big and some areas are just in totally different situations than others, so you have to be flexible in that regard, and adding.
So I think people might get the misinterpretation, you're just going to lift everything up, and even somebody's going like that. That's not going to happen. It's going to be looking at the data.
You also had California Governor Gavin Newsom talking in a press conference yesterday. Right now, California is under a safer at home guidance until at least April 19th, though officials say that it could be extended. And Newsom said that in California, we could be looking at another 8 to 12 weeks.
But I think April for California would be sooner than any of the experts that I talked to would believe is possible.
We've also seen a number of governors and state officials calling out the federal government's response to the virus, and not just in his call to open up the country alarmingly early, but also, for example, you had people like New York Governor Andrew Cuomo. His state has now become something of an epicenter of the American outbreak, right to the point that people who have recently been to New York City have been told to do a 14-day quarantine. And right now, the state of New York doesn't even have close to the amount of resources that they need to fight this. With Cuomo saying, for example, the state is in need of 30,000 ventilators. And while the state on its own was able to get its hands on a couple thousand, FEMA only reportedly offered 400, with Cuomo saying,
"Really? What am I going to do with 400 ventilators when I need 30,000? You pick the 26,000 people who are going to die because you only sent 400 ventilators."
And this morning when Cuomo was asked about Trump's Easter plan, he said that the economy should not come at the cost of people dying.
Nobody will say it is sustainable to keep the economy closed. It's not sustainable. We all get that. China got it, South Korea got it, etc. That's point one. Point two, everyone agrees, I believe, in this state, we do everything we can to save a life. We are not going to triage and say, well, these were old people, these were vulnerable people, they had to die sometime soon anyway.
Now with Cuomo, the potential good news that he shared this morning is that the rate of hospitalizations doubling has slowed. On Sunday, it was predicted every 2 days, Monday 3.4, Tuesday 4.7. And regarding why we're seeing that, Cuomo said,
the theory is, given the density that we're dealing with, it spreads very quickly, but if you reduce the density, you can reduce the spread very quickly.
But also noting the projection of the apex.
What we're studying is what is the high point of that line? What is the apex of that line? That is the point of the greatest number of people coming into the hospital system. So that's our greatest load, is the apex. And when is that going to happen? Again, that is a projection.
Right, and so if that projection holds, and this is obviously just about New York, the number of hospitalizations in New York would still be increasing 3 days after Easter. Right, so that's just one aspect of what's happening in the United States I wanted to touch on. The other part, of course, is the economy, and even more specifically, the stimulus bill. Long story short here, because I want to talk about what we're actually looking at now. Yesterday, we saw Senate Democrats and Republicans working with Treasury Secretary Steve Mnuchin to try and reach an agreement. Those talks lasted all day, and we ended up seeing at 1:30 this morning, all three groups agreed to a $2 trillion deal. Right, so the question becomes, well, what is actually in this bill? Well, first off, we see a boost to unemployment insurance. Reportedly, not only would those benefits be extended for 4 months, but people would also see an additional $600 a week on top of what they're already receiving. Right now, on average, people usually see about $385 per week. Though of note here, there are a few senators that say that this area needs to be fixed, with reports saying that Lindsey Graham, Tim Scott, Ben Sass, and Rick Scott object to this because, as written, the unemployment benefits would be larger than what low-wage workers usually make, and so it would incentivize them to get laid off and not return to the workforce. And so the amendment they want to introduce would limit unemployment benefits to 100% of a worker's salary. This bill also reportedly expands eligibility, this including gig workers. It also includes $150 billion to hospitals and other healthcare providers for equipment and supplies. According to Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer, the bill will also increase Medicare payments to all hospitals and providers. Also, as far as direct checks to the American people goes, that breakdown still looks like it would be $1,200 to each adult and $500 for each child. That is scheduled to come in 2 payments, the first of which would go out April 6th. Notably here, however, it would only be for people with incomes under $75,000 a year. So after that, it starts to phase out and disappear altogether if you make more than $99,000 a year. The bill would also give about $500 billion to use as back loans and assistance to big businesses. Notably here, $50 billion of that would go to loans for U.S. airlines. Also, $350 billion is meant to aid small businesses. Also, before going forward, I do want to note, and this is a big thing because the devil is in the details, we still do not at this time have the full text of this bill. Right, so we don't know the full extent of everything, but also reportedly this bill does contain a few key limitations. Definitely the most buzzworthy one we've seen is that Democrats won language barring any business owned by President Trump from applying for loans. Also, because they barred Trump, they also barred business loans for any other White House official as well as any member of Congress. Also, regarding those big companies to possibly get loans, they'll reportedly be subject to a ban on stock buybacks through the term of the loan and for 1 year after. We also saw that Republicans agreed to allow for an oversight board and to create a Treasury Department Special Inspector General for pandemic recovery. Right, this largely an attempt by Democrats Democrats to ensure companies limit executive bonuses as well as take steps to protect workers. All right, so there's that. Now, a thing to understand is right now it is still just a bill. You know, Congress is trying to move this bill into law as soon as possible. Reportedly, they're rushing it through without public hearings or a formal review of the full bill. Even if it's held up, the Senate is expected to eventually pass this bill. It would then go to the House of Representatives, which, a note here, it could get tricky here. You know, we saw Speaker of the House Nancy Pelosi say, this bipartisan legislation takes us a long way down the road in meeting the needs of the American people. House Democrats will now review the final provisions and legislative text of the agreement to determine a course of action. While Pelosi did say that the bill meets some of the Democrats' demands, she didn't say how the House would vote. Though yesterday, before we saw more of the details around this bill, she did say on CNBC that she hoped the House would pass it with unanimous consent. Notably here, that would mean the House, which is actually currently out of session right now, would only need 2 members to be present on the floor. It would just pass, but even if just one representative in the House said no, it would at the very least slow down passage of this bill until later this week. And for now, that's where we're going to end on the stimulus as we wait for more details, also to see more reactions. Now, as far as what we're seeing for our daily number updates, as of 2 p.m. Eastern Time in the United States, we've seen 60,115 confirmed cases, with a confirmed death count now at 827, and internationally, the number of confirmed cases 441,187, the number of confirmed deaths at 19,784, which is expected to pass 20,000 by the end of the day. Also, regarding international news, we saw amazing news out of the United Kingdom. Reportedly, in just 24 hours, 405,000 people volunteered to help the UK's National Health Service. Prime Minister Boris Johnson saying he had hoped for 250,000. And just seeing this result, he was amazed. And as far as what these volunteers would do, reportedly they would be asked to deliver medicine to patients, bring patients home from the hospital, make phone calls to check on people. So really, obviously, we're in concerning times, but it's great to see people stepping up like this in moments like this. And that said, while you do have places like the UK where people are stepping up, they're taking it serious, you also have places like Brazil, and specifically here I'm talking about Brazilian President Jair Bolsonaro. He is now telling people to go back to work, saying we must return to normality, calling this a small flu. But with this, we've also seen reports of people protesting the way that Bolsonaro has handled the coronavirus. Now, they can't take to the streets currently, but they were doing so from their windows, chanting, banging pots and pans, with one protester telling The Guardian, "The feeling I have is that the presidential chair is empty. We don't have a president. We have a clown who doesn't know what he is doing." Which I will say is a wild thing to see, because in the same 12-hour news cycle, you're seeing headlines like, Brazil gangs impose strict curfews to slow coronavirus spread, which is a bad look when you have literal drug traffickers stepping up and doing what a leader should be doing. Meanwhile, to take a closer look at several other countries, let's next move to Spain. As of today, Spain's coronavirus death count has officially surpassed that of China. This after registering an overnight increase of 738 new fatalities, with their total number reaching 3,434. There's also really troubling stories coming out of this country that has over 47,600 cases thus far, with stories like when soldiers were sent to disinfect nursing homes, they found elderly residents left unattended and some even dead in their beds. According to local reports, you have a number of caregivers who just walked out of these homes when the virus was detected, with some expressing their frustrations about working in high-risk conditions without adequate protective gear. Notably, prosecutors have also opened an investigation into the conditions of these facilities. Notably, in Spain, we are seeing interesting efforts to help the cause. As of this week, an ice rink in Madrid is being converted into a makeshift morgue as funeral homes are being overwhelmed by those left dead from this virus. Also in Madrid, an exhibition center typically used for trade fairs is being turned into a hospital. It is expected to have over 5,000 beds, including 500 in an intensive care unit when completed. And the beds here are important. Medical facilities in the worst affected areas have already been short on beds in ICUs. And with this, some healthcare staffers have said that elderly people who have lost their lives could have been saved if there wasn't a lack of ICU space. But also, regarding that note, Spanish officials have denied this claim, with Richard Ferrer, chairman of the Spanish Society of Intensive and Critical Care Medicine, saying some units are under a lot of stress, but we haven't reached that point in Spain. Also, the timing in Spain is notable. They're 11 days into a 15-day nationwide lockdown that is likely to be extended. The government there has faced criticism for not acting quickly enough, as Spain has seen a dramatic increase in cases in the past 2 weeks. But you also had Prime Minister Pedro Sanchez arguing that he acted in accordance with advice from scientific experts. The government there has also been resisting pushes to make the lockdown more strict by banning all non-essential activities, a move that would close down many factories and offices in an already struggling economy. And according to reports, one main significant characteristic of Spain that is worsening the problem of the virus is the country's socially oriented culture, which as of right now, it seems that citizens have been slow to give up. According to reports, since the lockdown began, authorities have found about 60,000 people disobeying the restrictions on going out and have arrested about 500 of them. Then we move to Italy, which remains the only country that's seen more coronavirus deaths than Spain, with a staggering 7,503 fatalities as of Wednesday. And there we're seeing Italian leaders facing their own struggles to maintain control over the country's lockdown, which is why you may have seen videos like that of Antonio De Caro, mayor of Bari. He was shown on camera personally yelling at people in public to go indoors. We've also seen other leaders releasing videos of themselves scolding their citizens for not complying with the stay-at-home ban.
Dovete stare a casa! Non avete capito che la gente muore? Più di 400 persone al giorno stanno morendo!
And on that aggravated man's note, that's where we're gonna end today's show. Feels right, but that also may be because I feel emotionally exhausted at this moment. Yeah, main thing, that is where I'm gonna end today's show. And of course, hey, if you like this video, you appreciate it, hit it with that like button. If you're new here, definitely subscribe, tap that bell to turn on notifications. That way you can make sure you don't miss these daily shows. Also, if you're looking for more to watch right now, like we've been doing every Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, you can check out the brand new ACW clips, or maybe just miss yesterday's Philip DeFranco show, you wanna catch up, you can click or tap right there to watch those right now. But with that said, of course, as always, my name's Philip DeFranco. You've just been filled in. I love yo faces, and I'll see you tomorrow.
I hope you liked this video. Subscribe if you like it.